All right, whether you're in the I'm just thinking about it phase or the I'm actually going to do it, or you might even just be about to sign on the dotted line and close on that new practice. No matter which phase you are in, what's going to happen is you're acquiring a new team, and there is a way to make sure that we can keep them and be successful with them. Watch this video to find out how. At the Dental MVP, we use science to teach people skills to you, the dental professionals. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel, the Dental MVP, and don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss out. When we purchase an existing practice, there are so many things involved. Usually you've got a broker, a banker, you might have a consultant who's telling you how to increase production. You might have an HR team rewriting the employee handbook. You've got someone helping you write your policies and procedures. There are so many pieces.
And then you can't forget the team.
Oh, of course.
So the team that you've heard wonderful things about, or maybe you've heard some not so great things about.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know that the success of a dental practice is significantly better if we're able to retain that existing team. They know the patients. They know how the office operates. So we're going to give you 10 tips to ensure that you're able to retain the team of the new practice that you just purchased or are thinking about purchasing.
Tip number 1, whenever possible, meet the team prior to the sale. It is so great to be able to meet them before you are technically their boss. Why? Because you're just a person at that moment in time. You are not their boss. And when this happens, when you're able to have that soft introduction, you're just a person that they're meeting. There's really no barriers up. There's no walls up. There's not that natural fight or flight response that kicks in when we see a change happening and we get fearful of it. You are just a person that they are meeting. And it gives you the ability to truly introduce yourself and be accepted for who you are and not have that fight or flight response up.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fear that's stimulated if on Friday the sale goes through and Monday morning they're getting the information that they now have a new employer.
Which is really common.
Which is really, really common because these transitions tend to be very behind closed doors. But when you're able to meet the team beforehand, like Christina said, they get a chance to meet you, to know who you are, to know the transition that's going to happen, and to really approach it with an open mind as for what is coming in the future.
Tip number 2 is to hire them. Now, it might just already be assumed that they're going to be coming on board with you, but it feels great to have a choice. If I'm working at a practice and someone else purchases the practice, to just assume that I'm going to be working there the next day is going to happen. But to have someone tell me that I was chosen to work there feels incredible. So hire them. Say something really great, like based off of what I've heard from your existing employer, I really would love to have all of you join my team and stay on board. Would you be willing to do that? And when you ask someone, would you be willing to join my team? That ends up being their choice. So they chose to be a part of the team versus it just being assumed and kind of pressured on them. And the outcome of that is much different. And you usually have somebody who's willing to follow alongside you much more when they have chosen to be on your team.
Yeah, that is a huge point because a lot of times what happens is the person who's selling the practice wants to guarantee that their team is going to be
So it's in the contract.
So it's in the contract. That's their family. They want to make sure that they all have secured jobs. But this conversation might not have happened with the team or with the person that is there or the person that this job belongs to. So having that assumption is a conversation that never really existed. So even so, they don't feel like they were a part of that. So if you're able to create that choice and give them that option to where they're saying, yes, I'm on board with this. I've met you. I like you. I want to support this vision for the practice. You're going to have so much more compliance with achieving your goals in the future.
Tip number 3 is get to know them. Now, you want to get to know them as quickly as possible, and it would be amazing to know who they are before you even meet them. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to base it off of what each other are telling you about each person or what the existing employer is, because that's just going to be their perception of them. And they've worked with them for 15 years maybe. So they have a completely different relationship than the relationship that you are going to be having with this person. So a great thing to do before you even start in the practice is to give everyone a personality test. And the reason that we do this is we say because we want to get to know who you are and how you function, you know, how you like to operate on a day-to-day basis. And this will give me a better idea as to how to properly communicate with them. When you know right off the bat how someone likes to be communicated with, if it's face-to-face, if it's via email, if they like checklists, if they like notes, whatever it is, if you know those details about that person in advance, that makes them feel like you get them. And anytime we feel like somebody likes us, that they get us, it produces that oxytocin, which is that feeling of I belong. And that's exactly what we want to create when we have a new team.
Tip number 4 is going to be to involve the team in any changes that are being made. So you may have companies that are orchestrating the new policies and procedures or HR policies or just changes to structure in general like that. But make sure that you're getting your team involved where they feel like they have some sort of a perspective to be able to share with all of these things that are changing, that are going to be changing their daily tasks, their salaries, their structures of their day. This has a big impact, and change is one of the most fearful things for people. So if we're able to have conversations about these before we say, like, this is the new thing that you just have to do, but to discuss the change in advance is going to have a huge impact on the compliance and also the mindset of the team. So you're not trying to fight forward with implementing these things, but instead working together.
Tip number 5 is to address change immediately. So like Chassie said, you want to involve the team as much as possible in these little things that we're going to change. But I know that your list is very long, right? When you are purchasing your practice, this is your dream. You want to make it your baby, your home. So you have a long list of changes that you want to make. Now, for some reason in dentistry, one of the things that we fall into is we have like this weird 6-month window where we decide not to make change. It's like this comfort window, right? Where you say, it's almost like in a relationship where you have 6 months where you don't act yourself, right? In 6 months, I'm not going to make any changes at all because I don't want to lose my team members. And then after that, I'm going to make these changes. But you have this long list of changes that you want to make. If you use that whole relationship analogy, if you were on a first date, if somebody told you, I never want to have children, and you want to have children, isn't that a really good thing to know up front? Versus if you wait 6 months to do so and you've moved in with them, you guys say I love you, your bank accounts are joined, and then they tell you at that moment in time that I never want to have children. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if that was the situation, does it make sense? So we want to make sure that we address it immediately. Give that list. It's exciting to have that list. Have everyone be involved in it and have meetings to go over it with them.
Tip number 6 is to have scheduled meetings. Now, it's not just that one first scheduled meeting, but making sure that there are consecutive meetings within the schedule. These are an amazing opportunity to not only talk with the team, but to make sure that you're listening as well. So if we hold off on, say, presenting change, just gets harder in the future. But if we can be upfront with the changes that we intend to implement, we can use these meetings as an opportunity to bring the team members in, to have them share their perspectives. Where do they see these changes being a barrier? What do they see would also need to be changed to be able to be successful in implementing these changes? Those are the conversations to have. And when they are part of these conversations, they're going to be so much more likely to support the change in the future because they're able to identify how it creates barriers in their roles or ways that they think it could be implemented if proceeded with differently. These conversations are huge, but definitely plan to listen with a neutral ear as well. I'm not saying that it will be easy to hear all of these opposing views as to why your biggest dreams that you have for this practice might not work or where it could be flawed. It's a great opportunity to just be receptive so you can plan for success in the future.
It's really great to have these in the schedule as far out as possible. Because what we don't want is we don't want to have the one-off meetings. And then as we get really busy, the meetings just kind of go away. And then you feel like, okay, this was just a forefront. Like he doesn't actually or she doesn't actually want to hear my opinion on a regular basis. That was just, a faux pas. If you have it scheduled out, it's like, no, this is consistent. We are going to consistently meet X, Y, and Z amount of time. And your opinion is always going to be heard at this time. That creates that mindset for people to know, okay, I'm heard out on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, whatever you feel comfortable with in your practice to be able to have these discussions. And that just shows that there's always that open door to have the conversations. Tip number 7 is to ask for their advice. Now remember why you kept this team on in the first place, right? It has proven that these team members are going to keep our patients. If you have the existing team, you get to keep more of the existing patients. And they've been there for a while. So they might know things that maybe you don't, especially when it comes to the patients. Make them the experts of the patients. Ask them, say, hey, Susie's coming in at 2:00. Is there anything I should know about her? Is there anything I should know about this patient? Is there anything you want to tell me? When people ask for advice and they truly mean it, it makes you, again, feel like you belong. And it makes you feel that warm, fuzzy feeling inside, like I'm part of this amazing team. So ask for their advice and truly listen to what their advice is that they have to give you.
Tip number 8 is to give raving introductions to both yourself and your team members. So as you've worked through a lot of this advice, you've had the opportunity to get to know the team that you work with. You've had that ability to recognize their strengths and the assets that they bring to the team. So making sure that you pause and recognize that. As you're introducing them to a patient, acknowledge that they are the kindest, most gentle person that you're working with to make your patients feel at ease. You also get to give them that additional compliment, which makes them feel like you're really recognizing them for who they are and what it is that they bring to the team. We have a video on raving introductions, so make sure to check that out for more information on how to format these.
It's a great opportunity when you're a new employer, too. It feels very sincere when you give these raving introductions because it's almost like you've uncovered something magical about this person that you never knew before. Because you can say to a patient, like, I heard that Chastity is one of the most gentle hygienists here. You're in great hands. And you actually mean it. And that feels really good to the person to be like, oh, you've heard that about me? Because they couldn't just make that up. So raving introductions are the truth. Watch our video on raving introductions to figure out how to kind of format these and start giving them to your employees.
Yeah, one of the things that we don't do enough is really letting people know that we like them.
Yeah.
Like, which is a big flaw because a lot of people will end up leaving jobs or they're leaving roles because they don't feel like they're recognized. This is going to go a bit into the next
one.
But this is a moment where we've all had those situations where we're like, oh gosh, I wonder if that person likes me or if they really enjoy me working here. And when you give these raving introductions and recognize someone for their strengths, it's another way to confirm, like, I really enjoy having you on this team. I'm so glad that you bring these strengths or these characteristics to the team. Which is going to segue into the next tip.
Yeah, so tip number 9 is show appreciation. Like Chastity said, one of the number one complaints when it comes to team members in a dental practice is that they feel underappreciated. Now, remember that personality test that we talked about? One thing that you can learn from a personality test as well is how people like to be appreciated. So use a personality test that shows what their appreciation level is. We also have a video on how to show appreciation that you can watch that can kind of help you find that if you're not using it in the test that you have exactly. But basically, you want to be able to make people feel appreciated. So, thank them for the little things. Sometimes we don't realize how far a thank you can go. A thank you is very easy to do, and it doesn't feel that big when you give it, but it feels really big for the person who's receiving it. Science has shown that the human brain really appreciates a thank you. So just thanking them for their time, saying thank you every day, and knowing that they might not have gotten this in their previous experience is going to go a long way.
Tip number 10 is going to be to endure the hardships. Going through these transitions are challenging. There are a lot of moving parts. You have policies and procedures that are changing, maybe new technology being implemented, shifts in the structure or scheduling, and it can be really overwhelming. It's not uncommon as you're getting used to working with each other and understanding the routines of one another to run behind, to have late days. Leaders are more successful when they are able to endure the hardships with their team. And this doesn't have to be anything crazy, but if you have one of your assistants that is working through lunch, staying and working through with them, helping them break their room down. If you have someone who is struggling with figuring out how a procedure is supposed to be done and they're new to this, really stepping in to just help walk them through that. The hardships don't have to be that hard, but it's really letting your team know that you're there for them and that you're willing to take that extra step to be able to support them and make sure that they're comfortable as well.
We understand that transitions are not easy. And while we gave you 10 tips to help you maintain the team that you have, there are still going to be some things that you run into. You're going to have conflict conversations that need to happen. You're going to have opposing views that are coming at you. You're going to have passive-aggressive employees. And unfortunately, you are likely going to run into one of those toxic employees that you might even need to let go. That's why at the Dental MVP, we use science to teach people skills to dental professionals. We've studied people, and we're giving you that information on a weekly basis. So make sure to subscribe to our channel for weekly tips and tricks on how you can ensure your success during this transition.